Okay, look, let's be honest with each other. It's a little bit strange that only once a year does a WWE Raw superstar or a WWE SmackDown superstar, or in 2019, an NXT superstar go, you know what? It's November, and all of a sudden I really care about the brand that I'm on, and I care about brand supremacy, and I'm going to walk out there and I'm going to kick anybody's ass that is not wearing the same colour shirt as I am. But then when December rolls around, I don't give two hoots. But that is what we do, and boy howdy did we go to town on last night's episode of Raw. But before we find out if it was good, and before we find out if it's bad, we take the finger of power and we simply change the words. We give the good bits an up and we give the bad bits a down. My name is Simon Miller. You are watching WhatCulture Wrestling. Let's up those downs for Monday Night Raw. Raw's start was just a random bag of madness, wasn't it? Becky Lynch was out here and she was saying she can't wait to kick Shayna Baszler and Bayley's ass, and if they want to do that right here, right now, she is up for the fight. And then do you know who interrupted her? The Iconics, who we haven't seen on television since officially the year 1442. Now here's the thing, I really like Peyton Royce and Billie Kay, and I think they play up to their gimmick really well, but why has nobody told me where they've been? And doubly so, how can they be mad, which is what they were doing here, that they're not on Team Raw, when again, nobody has even seen them? Like, before you start going, hey, why can't we get on the team, mate? Shouldn't you go take our pictures off the side of those milk cartons? We have returned. It got even more bizarre when Charlotte Flair interrupted and looked at Becky Lynch and said, look, Becky, I know that you don't want to team with me, because Lynch had alluded to that in her promo. And Charlotte said, well, you know what? I don't want to team with you either, but the forces are pulling us together. What in the hell are the forces? Am I watching Star Wars? Come on, man. That just means there is literally no storyline reason for these two enemies to now come together, but WWE couldn't be bothered to figure anything out. In fact, the only explanation there is... Do you find yourself getting very confused Monday Night Raw and a lot of the stories never making sense, and then when you try and go to bed at night, you find yourself crying, welling up, and simply asking the question, why? Well, don't worry. You're not alone. You're just a WWE fan, and there's millions of us, I include myself among you, and we watch the storylines and we try and think maybe we're at fault and maybe we've forgotten something before realizing, no, stuff just happens. So if you are struggling or you're not able to find the answers, simply call us on 0800 Stuff Just Happens. Somebody is waiting to take your call. Down. It kept throwing weird curveballs at us, because then Samoa Joe's music played and he erupted all of this, and then Raw went to a commercial break and I sat there going, does this mean Samoa Joe has joined the women's division? And if he has, why? As it turns out, no, he is just going to be a special guest commentator on this evening, because as he said, he is Brock Lesnar proof, and to be fair to Samoa Joe, unsurprisingly, he was really good at commentary and he provided wonderful sound bites for the entire evening. He gets it up. Back in the ring, the Iconics then lost to Lynch and Flair in around about 3.2 seconds when they did tap out to the figure eight, and then finally this segment got going because Shayna Baszler was there, Jessamine Duke was there, Marina Shafir was there, and they were beating up everybody, and even when Charlotte and Becky got back in the ring, the NXT women kicked their ass too. For some reason, then we were out in the crowd and Becky Lynch just punched a security guard right in the face because he was trying to calm everything down, and when they showed the replay, she definitely just lugged him right in his jaw. And it did kind of work in the sense it reminded you what's going to be happening on Sunday, but if you are a long-term viewer like myself, you could point holes in a lot of it and go, that doesn't make any sense. For those who do follow WWE on social media as well, you were probably quite surprised to see that on this evening, we were going to get Kurt Hawkins and Zack Ryder fighting the Viking Raiders for the Raw Tag Team Championship, because they had won that opportunity on a house show in Berlin. It seemed like something funny was up, and it absolutely was, because they were being interviewed backstage here, and instead of getting a match, or instead of being given anything that could be considered positive, the AOP made their physical return to Raw in suits, and they absolutely kicked the shit out of them. We should have known this meant something, and if you are a Zack Ryder or Kurt Hawkins fan, and you saw this on Twitter and said, ha, I'm going to tune into Raw to see that match, well, more fool you. It was then back to the ring, and WWE finally did what they should have done 2 weeks ago, but I guess better late than never. up. The OC made their way out to the ring and AJ Styles got on the microphone and said, Humberto Carrillo, I do not appreciate you disrespecting me recently. I don't really know what he was referring to, because all I have in my memory banks is that AJ Styles and Carrillo fought, and AJ Styles kept winning. Either way, tonight it was going to be Humberto versus Carl Anderson, so Carl could teach him a lesson, and lo and behold, it turned out the Street Profits were going to be in Humberto's corner to balance everything out. And amazingly, as I just suggested, Humberto actually won and finally got a victory. Now, it came through some of the dumbest means I've ever seen, like Carl Anderson rolled Humberto up, and the Street Profits saw this, they just went boop, and they pushed it the other way, so they reversed the momentum, which meant Carrillo got like one of the least dominant victories I've seen in the last 422 years, but at this point, he just needed to get in the win column. Thankfully, he's there. He also did look very good when he was doing his offense in this match. At one point, he kind of just flew over the top rope onto the awaiting crowd, and I almost cried. I got a bit emotional because it was just so damn smooth. It was like a swan on a lake. Seth Rollins' promo was next, and he is going to be taking on Andrade later. And you want to know why? Because they got into it on Twitter, and Andrade laid down the challenge. And as Seth Rollins told us, in the 7 years he's been in WWE, he's never turned down a challenge. Except when he was a bad guy and had half black hair and half blonde hair, and used to run away from challenges constantly. But forget about that, it doesn't matter. He started making some comments about the New England Patriots and Tom Brady, and suggested the reason some people don't like Mr. Brady is because he got so good, and who does that sound like? So he was suggesting that he is so good, that's why people don't like him. Seth, you're off the money. I mean, honestly, between you and me, I swear we're meant to boo him at this stage. It can be the only reason for these lines. Bobby Lashley then beat No Way Jose in around about a minute. And beforehand, Lana was the mic saying she's going to get divorced from Rusev, and she's got a restraining order against her husband that means he can't come within 90 miles of her. Lashley then whispered, no you goon, it's 90 feet. And that was actually quite funny. Unfortunately, the segment ended with the two furiously making out like they always do, and it's just so awkward. This is how I watch this stuff. I close my eyes because I am not tuning into Raw to watch Bobby Lashley and Lana make out like they've never kissed anyone before. I mean, this was far less intrusive than it has been in recent weeks, but still, I close my eyes, I don't want to see it, down. Then it happened again. Why? Why do you have to do this every single week, WWE? The stupid thing being, it actually makes sense for you to do it on an episode like this, but because you've done it so many times in the past, it just winds me up. Down. But look, here's the deal. We did get Andrade versus Seth Rollins, and it was a really, really good match, and hopefully showed some people, oh wow, we should really keep an eye on Andrade. There was even a cool moment when Zelina Vega went to do her Hurricane Rana from the apron to Seth Rollins, and he just pushed her off, and the referee saw that, and he said to Zelina, you have to leave. And she did. And if WWE had just let Rollins and Andrade go from this point and given us a proper winner, so we could have gone, oh my gosh, this means something, it would have been fabulous. But even still, from the in-ring action, it does get enough. But no, like every other match in the history of Raw, we got a DQ with a Lucha House Party at just some indeterminate point of time decided, oh, now's the time to interrupt, even though we probably could have just interrupted in the first 5 seconds. And I know we're building to Survivor Series, that this is what I'm talking about. Don't do it on every other single episode throughout the year, so that means when you do have to do it, it actually carries some weight. Because do I now think SmackDown are more dominant than Raw? No. It just stole away a clean finish from a match that would have been 10 times better if we had gone in the direction of a clean finish. It's also got to the point where I'm expecting it, and that means it's ridiculous. I shouldn't be watching wrestling where I'm supposed to suspend my disbelief and go, well, they ain't gonna let Seth Rollins win, and they ain't gonna let Andrade win, so I'm gonna sit here and look at my watch and wait until somebody just runs in and interferes. The two did have some respect for each other after they had chased away the Luchas, and Seth looked at Andrade and said, we'll do this again in the future. Yeah, right. I also think Aleister Black may now be a comedy character too. Buddy Murphy was at his magical door and he gave him a knock, and clearly things work differently in Australia, because Buddy literally gave Aleister Black about half a millisecond to open the door before he went, I guess that guy was full of talk, and he just walked off. Black must have been in the shower or something, because he came bursting through the door looking for the postman, looking for whoever had knocked on the door, and after kind of staring around for a few seconds, he locked himself with a sad look on his face. This was very, very bizarre. Triple H also then pulled up in a limo backstage, so you knew something big was going down, and we got our Raw advertisement for CM Punk, who will be on Backstage tomorrow night, or should I say this evening, or whenever the hell that show is. Also, just to calm everybody down, both on SmackDown and Raw, where they did show him on Backstage, they didn't use Cult of Personality. Instead, they replaced it with some generic rock music. So CM Punk has definitely signed a deal with Fox, and he definitely hasn't signed a deal with WWE. Buddy Murphy's push does actually finally start to seem like it's going in the right direction again. And finally, because that took a while, give it up. Nice and simple here, he was taking on Tozawa, and they just had an awesome back and forth that was full of moves, that was full of flips, and was full of things that make you feel warm and fuzzy inside. Eventually Murphy hit him with the V-trigger and the Murphy's Law, and he gets a victory, and onwards he goes. I think we are going to do Aleister Black versus Buddy Murphy at some point, because after this, Buddy went back to his door, and this time I guess Aleister was like peering out the window constantly, because he didn't want to miss his delivery, because he was out there like white on rice. They stared each other down before Murphy handed over the letter to Black, and we will see where this goes. One of those things didn't happen. Okay, moving on to what was next. I don't know what to give these Erick Rowan segments, because without the context I don't know what the hell is going on. Again, he was talking goo goo gaga to the weird thing he's got into the cage. He then went to the ring, he beat up a jobber, he beat up the Sings, and he chased away R-Truth. And then he left with the thing in the cage, and the whole time he was very protective over it. So I can't pass judgment at this time, because maybe the coolest thing ever is gonna be inside that cage. Maybe it's gonna be the explanation as to why he no longer cares about the environment, or hell, maybe it's John Morrison. He apparently signed a deal with WWE, and we haven't seen him, well, since that rumor came about. Maybe John Morrison going to be in the box, and maybe John Morrison enjoys it when Erick Rowan talks baby language to him. Randy Orton was then cutting a promo backstage saying that he will take on the Viking Raiders later, and he will pick a mystery partner of his choosing. Never actually got told that Ryder and Hawkins weren't, well enough to compete, but I guess that was the assumption. But always remember, stuff just happens, friends. Stuff just happens. And then it happened again. Why do we have to keep breaking my system? Although this one actually gets a pass for reasons we'll talk about up. Because it was Drew McIntyre versus Kevin Owens, and dude, do we need to see a proper program between those two, because they had such a good match full of near falls and last minute kickouts that you couldn't believe. The fans bought into it, I bought into it. I didn't even know that Kevin Owens and Drew McIntyre would have such good chemistry. This was genuinely a fantastic match. But do you want to know how it ended? Do you want to know how it ended? Triple H's music hit, the whole King of Kings, and he just walked out, and by the time we had come back from a break, Drew McIntyre had vanished, maybe he fell into a hole, and Kevin Owens and Trips were just having a conversation. Like, what? Again though, I am going to let it slide, just because I was so engrossed with everything that happened afterwards. Because Triple H got on the microphone, and he just started kissing Kevin Owens' ass, but he did it in a way that made perfect sense. He was saying, look dude, you were torn from NXT. Nobody wanted you to go. I didn't want you to go. And how were you treated when you got to Raw and SmackDown, where you were fired by Kurt Angle and you were fired by Shane McMahon? Nobody understood you. Nobody got you, but you always had a home down in NXT. The Forgotten Sons, Damian Priest and Dominik Dijakovic, had been ringside for all of this, but even then Trips was like, don't worry about them. They're just there to ensure you and I can have this conversation. I want you to come back to me, Kevin Owens. I'll treat you like the king that you are, and together we can rule the world. It was at this point as well that he insinuated nobody cared about him on Raw, because here they were with a bunch of NXT guys staring at him, and not one person was there to make the save. That of course meant a bunch of Raw guys came out to make the save, including the likes of Cedric Alexander and Ricochet. And this is when everything blew up, because again, from nowhere, which is the theme of this show, the Undisputed Era jumped in the ring and they started hammering on Kevin Owens, and very interestingly, Triple H looked on disapprovingly, like, what are you doing, Adam Cole? This wasn't part of the plan. The OC eventually chased everybody off, but this was good, because not only finally do NXT actually look like a dominant threat that they have to do if they're invading somebody else's show, but now we've got these interesting story seeds between Triple H, Kevin Owens, and the Undisputed Era. I genuinely want to see where it's going to go, and double that when we talk about our go-home angle, which we'll talk about when we get there. We then learned it's going to be Humberto Carrillo versus AJ Styles for the United States Championships next week on Raw. And who the hell knows why, because again, Styles has beaten him a couple of times, and we got a brand new stipulation for Rey Mysterio versus Brock Lesnar at Survivor Series. Give it up. The short version, because Raw this week did have around about 642 segments, is that fight is now a no DQ. And the reason I got so pumped up about this is because if I was going to have Rey Mysterio win the WWE title, I'd make it a no disqualification match, and I'd have Cain Velasquez go out there and whoop Brock Lesnar a little bit, which would allow then Rey to get the victory. And I know deep down we all want Mysterio to win clean, but come on now, that ain't ever gonna happen. The fact that Mysterio also stared down the camera lens and cut a very, very good promo also added to this fire, because he was like, Brock, I'm gonna hunt you down, and he had the pipe that he'd beaten the Beast up with a few weeks ago. I'm gonna take your title, and I'm gonna do it all for my son. You're damn right, Rey, it's your time. Oh, also before that, Rey was really, really proud about how well Humberto Carrillo was doing. He got him over and he went, good work, pal. That was a bit strange. Asuka followed this by beating Natalya. That was all that happened. Kairi Sane did some interfering. Eventually Asuka just kicked her in the face. She pinned her, and I'd imagine the whole time Natalya was thinking, man, I preferred it when I was in a random tag team with Charlotte and actually getting victories instead of just being taken out of that team for no reason and being put here instead. This is the direction Natalya looks when she's upset. Down. Despite some serious overkill in our main event too, for all the reasons I've ever talked about, the fact that WWE does non-finish, 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 365 days a year, given that this was the last thing that we saw on Raw before the Survivor Series, I thought they did a very good job of telling you what the deal was. Give it up. It was the Viking Raiders taking on Randy Orton and the mystery partner of Ricochet, and straight away, I know, you're saying, but Simon, why would Rick agree to team up with Randy Orton when 7 days ago he was absolutely terrified he was going to get his face RKO'd into the floor? My answer to you is simple. Whatever. Halfway through this though, we cut to the back where the Raw and SmackDown guys were having a big fight, and that was alluding to what was going to happen next, because hilariously, then the SmackDown theme started to play, and we shouldn't have done that, they should have just run down, but the SmackDown guys were there and they started to kick everybody's ass. A bunch of the Raw roster got rid of them, including using the help of some NXT people that arrived, like Matt Riddle and Pete Dunne and Keith Lee and Tommaso Ciampa, but finally it was NXT that took control, and that is exactly what we needed to do to tell you, oh, maybe at Survivor Series, NXT has a shot, because there have been certain other things that we've done where that hasn't been the case. So eventually the Raw Tag Team Champions were down, Randy Orton was down, Ricochet was down, AJ Styles was down, Seth Rollins were down, because they'd all gone out there to try and balance the books, and then Triple H was on the big screen saying, look, Wednesday night, it's an open door policy, anybody wants to try and get at us, well, we'll be ready, and we'll make sure it's you that drags out of there with your tail between your legs. And then the very last shot that we saw was Keith Lee chucking Humberto Carrillo into a seat of Raw and SmackDown guys, and they ended the night on top. And really, while WWE kind of does this similar brawl in November each and every year, it still worked this time, mostly because of the addition of Triple H's Band of Brothers. I'm also now more excited about the pay-per-view than I was, so it worked all around. I'm just so irked that we do have to do these interference, because like I say, you can probably go to every single Raw of this year and you'll find at least one match that has a non-finish, and that makes me sad. But by and large, I felt like WWE pulled out the big guns on this episode of Raw, and that's why when we get our big spinny arrow to grade the whole thing, it gets an up. And look, I'm definitely going to watch NXT this week, right? Whose superstars are going to appear on there? And if SmackDown can do something huge too, Survivor Series is going to be in good shape.
Sorry to interrupt you again there, Simon, but this is all just getting a little bit out of hand, isn't it? I just wanted to interrupt a few of your videos, have a little bit of fun with it, because that's what two pals do, but you've taken your ball and you've gone home. You've taken my introduction for my video and you've banned me from using it, and that just won't do, will it? So what was it Triple H was saying about Wednesday? The door to NXT is wide open. Well, the door to NXT Ups and Downs on Thursday is wide open as well. So why don't you bring your little self down to that and we can settle this like two pals should. I'll even give you one free little hit if that's what you want. So yes, Simon, see you Thursday.